Anvil was one of those bands that just put on this really amazing live performance.
They're a great band, yeah. I always liked Anvil.
In the summer of 1984, Anvil toured the world with the biggest bands in rock.
These guys are going to turn the music world upside down.
All of them sold millions of records around the world. All of them, but one.
One thing that's really good, man, is that we found those sleeping bags. This is where we learned how to play.
We're like brothers.
We were just innocent kids. We didn't really know what we were doing.
Crappy productions, crappy management.
Welcome to Rock Docs, a podcast about music documentaries brought to you by Treble Media. I'm Dave Lizabram here with my co-host,
Andrew Keats.
And today we are going to talk about another classic. We've kind of been a little bit of a run of Rock Docs classics, and this is certainly one of them, Anvil, the Story of Anvil, a film from 2008 directed by Sacha Gervasi, something like that. To join us in talking about that, we have a guest. Andrew, set it up for us.
So we always like to say that we invite our guests to choose, and our guest today is Fran Broderick. If you're from the New York area, you might know him as left-handed second baseman. But Fran sent over a list of docs that he was interested in, none of which we've done yet, except I guess Long Way Home, right? Was we had just recorded basically, but we've not released yet. So, but the one that we ended up on was Anvil. So, Fran, left-handed second baseman, tell us a little bit. What was your thinking in choosing Anvil? This 2006, at this point now a pretty old movie, but a certain certified Rock Docs classic.
For sure, yeah. So Anvil, I saw back when it first came out on DVD, and I'm kind of a nerd for anything that gets really, big text reviews. That if you look at the poster, it's all masterpiece or best movie ever made. So like. I just remember it stuck with me when I was sort of scanning your episodes. I was like, oh man, they haven't done Anvil. Like I was like, I would love to revisit that one. And I remember a lot of it, but revisiting it for this podcast, I was just like, man, this film was so awesome. And it's such a great, it captures the sort of like enthusiasm, the youthful enthusiasm of like, every band trying to make it. But the fact that these guys are 50 and working class jobs, and then just that they're these like Spinal Tap characters, it just makes for an incredible doc. And I'm sure we'll get to it a little later, but the sort of meta aspect of it, which is like, folks chasing fame, and the doc helps, bring that about, kind of thing.
Yeah. But so folks who may not be familiar with your music, you're more of a folky, really.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a metal
For sure.
guy.
Not at all.
Are you not at all?
Not at all.
No youthful dalliances with Metallica or anything like that?
No. This is like strictly like, it's weird. Like this is like my film, I like indie film. I've worked on indie films in the past. So like, I don't know, man. This was just strictly like, what a great documentary, and what great inspirations, like just sort of, there's like one, like I said, I was a nerd for seeing like a movie poster with all these great reviews. And I remember that the one was like, it's a hymn to the human spirit, which has been reused for so many movies. But like at, whatever age I was, this is like almost 15 years ago. I was just like, oh man, like, this is going to be inspiring. And it was, it's a really inspiring documentary.
So, all right. So a lot of times when we open this, we go around and discuss whether we had previously been fans of or known of this band prior to watching the documentary. So I think we know what the answer is going to be here. But Andy, prior to this movie coming out, were you a big Anvil head?
No, absolutely not. This movie represents the sum total of my Anvil awareness.
I'm getting the sense that on this recording, I'm the closest thing to a metalhead, which is not that close. Yeah. But I enjoy some metal, and I've gone back and listened to the the early stuff from around this time, like even before the documentary came out. I was already like kind of hip to, I don't know, Venom and Exodus and like those kind of early bands that were kind of coming up around the same time when like Metallica was getting started and Anthrax and those bands. And I had never heard of Anvil before the doc came out. So it seems like they were
I was
pretty
curious.
obscure.
I was curious whether like the run of the mill Metallica, Anthrax, Iron Maiden fan would know a little bit about Anvil or know nothing at all about Anvil.
Yeah, I mean, I was never I was never in the community. You know what I mean? Like I was never
Yeah.
like a guy. Like I just I check it out. So yeah, so I was definitely not familiar with them before. And Fran, I'm getting the sense that you previously were not hip to Anvil.
No, I learned about them when I saw the trailer for this film. Yeah.
All right, so let's Fran, do you want to describe this band? Like, who is Anvil, and why should we care?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're introduced to Anvil via the trailer, or the film, they are performing at the height of their powers, which I believe is a 1984 tour of Japan with Metallica, Bon Jovi, and the movie is sort of set up by saying, "Hey, look at all these great bands that this band was, peers with," and so yeah, they're I guess, early heavy metal, right around when Metallica was starting out. And David, you can probably do a better job contextualizing the metal part of it. But they seem to be peers of major bands, and they've got talking heads such as Scotty from Anthrax and Slash and Lars talking about how they were influential, although some of that might just be sort of them sending it up for the doc. But they seem to have had some seminal records in the early 80s. And then sort of they're like so many bands, their fame and cachet dwindled, but they remained weekend warriors in Canada, where when the movie takes place, which I think it's filmed in 0506, they've just hit 50, and clearly not famous anymore and just playing in local bars, but absolutely just as passionate about the concept of making it big and getting signed to a major record label.
Yeah, when you come out of that first little intro period, the sort of like the beats of a doc like this lead you to, not necessarily because of anything that the movie's doing, just sort of knowing the template lead you to, and then one of the guys got hooked on heroin,
Right.
or somebody died, some sort of fall from grace that's precipitated by an event. It's not they kept grinding it out, making 13 records over the throughout the entirety of the 90s. At no point did they ever stop playing. It's just that the world stopped paying attention.
Yeah.
More than anything else, it's a nice, like right off the bat, it's a nice little twist. You're like, okay, this is a different type of story.
And the movie doesn't really set that up. It doesn't, like, you see in the very beginning,
it's kind of a surprise.
You see in the beginning this super rock festival. No, but even that, like, you see in the beginning they're playing this huge rock festival in '84 with the Scorpions and all these big bands, and then like, you get these like parade of talking heads, Lars and all these people who you never hear from again. There's like there's the first 3 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of famous talking heads, Lemmy and all these guys, and then that's it for that. They dispense with that immediately, probably for the best. And then like it just cuts to them 20 whatever years later. Like you don't get the from there. It doesn't, like, the movie just like wants you in that place. Like you have that little intro, and then the rest of the movie is just you're living with these guys now as they're in their turning 50 and working construction jobs and driving a truck in Canada and living their lives, and it doesn't bother to fill in the whole backstory, and you just kind of get it through context, and also it really doesn't matter. Like it's not intended to be a like one of the movies we watched that's like a Wikipedia entry turned into a movie. You know what I mean? Which can be fine. But they just that's not what it's setting up at all. And so there's these basically the Anvil is there's multiple people who have been in the band over the years, but it's really these two guys, and it's a story of these two guys and their relationship. So it's so the lead singer is Steve Lips Kudlow, who everybody calls Lips. And he's the lead guitar player, singer slash kind of frontman slash main guy, I guess. And then his like childhood friend Robb Reiner, ROBB, not the film director.
Incredible that that's the
Yes,
name
yeah,
of,
right. Not
the
the
second
not the
main
director of
character
Spinal
for
Tap.
this film of
Yeah,
all films.
exactly.
Exactly.
Not the director of Spinal Tap, but the other Robb Reiner, who's the drummer and kind of like the, kind of the more silent, strong silent type kind of guy. And you learn more about these characters and their lives as the film goes on. But it's, there's been other people in the band, but it's basically these two guys, childhood friends, that just like were growing up in Canada and had this dream of like, rocking out, and lived the dream for a moment as young men, and then it went away and just never really gave up. And it's it's a pretty, I mean, it really is not like one of those easy watching, then this happened, then this album came out, kind of thing. It's really like a character study that you got to hang with in order. It's rewarding, but it is not. You're not going to get like the consistent moments of triumph you're going to get in a Tom Petty documentary. It's not that kind of thing at all.
Yeah. No, the struggle and the conflict just builds and builds and builds. And also, I want to just make sure we introduce two other characters that are sort of sprinkled throughout the film, because they're just incredible, which are the super fans of Anvil, Cut Loose and Mad Dog. And we'll get Cut Loose has an incredible return to the film later on.
The Cut Loose story pays off.
Yeah, it really does. But like the only note I have for Mad Dog in the film, which takes place early on, is I'm pretty sure he chugs a beer through his nose at Lips, at his 50th birthday party. Which is also really just sort of sets the tone, It's like, all right, here they are right now, and you're in just like any dive bar in any town,
right.
And it's sparsely attended, and Mad Dog's chugging beer through his nose, and like that's sort of like
it's at a bar in, and I'm not going to pronounce this right, but I wrote this down. Etobicoke, Ontario, Etobicoke. No slam to our fans and listeners in Etobicoke, or however you pronounce it. But it's put on screen just to be like, this is kind of middle. It's intended to tell you like this is happening in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, things are dire. Yeah.
So.
And to Andy's point about thinking like you typically think you're going in a direction of like, okay, this person got addicted to drugs, or had this kind of thing happen. One of the choices that I love that the director makes is like he's interviewing Lips in his car, which is barely hanging on in the middle of winter. So it's just so dreary, and like having him give these interviews in the car, you're like, oh, at first you're like, oh, maybe he's homeless. Like, I don't like, but it's just like, no, he's just, man's just living one day at a time, trying to get that record deal.
Yeah. So to the point about this like movie really kind of being a character study, and you just kind of go along with these guys and the tension builds. It's interesting that it's directed by a super fan, because it is not like a fan service documentary at all, right? Like, I mean, maybe fans would be really enamored by the decision to sort of just get you so deep into their lives, but it's not like the movie doesn't really even answer the question of like whether they're good, like like whether they're overlooked and deserve more credit. It sort of like leaves that question to the side and says like, we'll like who cares about that? Let's see what they do, And I think if you just had told me, well, this super fan made a documentary about them, I thought it would all be about like the injustice of the music industry and how wrong it was that they didn't get what was coming to them after they were so influential in the early 80s. And like that stuff's there, but it's more like a breadcrumb to the story. It's not. It's by no means the like main thesis of.
There's not a lot of music in the movie. I mean, you see them performing, but it's like brief clips of performances. Yeah, you hardly hear any of their recordings. They've done like whatever 13 albums or something like that. You don't really get exposed to that, and like it's not like the kind of movie where like when they're not performing, the music underneath the narration is like their own music. Like a lot of times you'll get that,
right.
Like again, like a Tom Petty, you'll hear, Wildflowers playing under some section of a movie because it's a familiar song, and it's, like No, this is completely unrelated to that at all, and the music is really a little bit to the side.
Which, yeah, like especially for me as a like a non metalhead, like I don't feel like there's enough in the movie for me to answer the question about whether they're good. Like you
No,
barely
not
hear
at
them.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when I said earlier, like this was like purely I'm watching this from a documentary perspective.
Yeah.
Like as a musician, there was nothing to even sort of like bite into in terms of like you see them fight about maybe a performance or a take, but like there isn't any sort of analysis or like like songwriting, what they're going for, what's a challenging part to play versus like there's just nothing there and musically really in terms of just sort of like showcasing or discussing the music. It's just about like I said, a character study of these guys.
Yeah, I mean the one thing, and I guess this is part maybe what makes the initial part with all the talking heads important or more important than it was in other movies. It's like validation that we're even doing this movie.
Yes.
It's like right. It's like, okay, let up at the top before you start asking me like why I chose this bar band to spend 2 hours on as opposed to any other bar band. This is the one that Slash says is really good and that Lars says is really good, right? Okay. All right, we've dispensed with that. We're pretty much going to be done with the question about whether they're deserving now.
Exactly.
And we're going to transition on to how do these guys do it? How do these guys stay at the ground,
I almost wonder if this was so I was just gonna say like an editing note, because it's absolutely something that feels like someone was like, all right, listen, it's great, but like nobody's gonna watch this unless you give them like a hook and like you tack in these very famous talking heads.
Maybe. I mean,
which must have been tough. I mean, that must have been like they did not.
I mean, Lars and Scott Ian seem. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's not like they got like the AA guys to come validate them. They get like Lars, Scott, and Slash.
And it's I never understand. Somebody just explained it to me. Like, okay, you have an interview, you book an interview with Lars Ulrich, you go to wherever he is, you set it all up with the lighting and everything, and then you have like him in the movie for like a 10-second clip. Like, how did that work? Like, what are the logistics of that? Is that like he's doing a bunch of interviews and you get slotted in a junket? Is it like I'm not sure it makes sense to do, like you must talk to him for more than that 10 seconds. Like, what are you doing with the I don't know. It's all like the mechanics of how that happens in the documentary world is a little mysterious to me, but nonetheless, because it's not like these are vintage clips of them talking about Anvil. Like, because sometimes you see that, like, you'll see a vintage clip of another artist talking about them, but no, this is all fresh stuff. So, so then we're introduced to the wider community here, which is basically we find out that both these guys, Lips and Rob, both are married and they both have teenage sons. And we also over the period of time meet a bunch of Lips's family members, Toby, his mom, and like 2 brothers and a sister, I think. And it's like you learn over time, like one brother is a doctor, one brother is a CPA, like and they come from this. Yeah,
endocrinologist.
Yeah,
endocrinologist. Yeah, they're all incredible.
And they're all so sweet, and it's like they come from this Jewish family in Canada, and all the parts with Lips's relatives are so endearing because they just love the guy. Mm-hmm. They feel for him. They want him to succeed and to have success as an artist and be recognized. You get the sense that like none of them. It's not like they want him to be recognized as an artist because they are also metalheads. You know what I mean? Like you can tell.
No, they just
he's their brother
in him. They're
or
just
their
like
son,
the most supportive family.
Yeah, and you hear that like maybe sometimes like the father wasn't very supportive or whatever. You get a little bit of that from Rob talking about Lips's family, whereas Rob says only positive things about his parents. But it's it is really like this. You gotta love when any rock doc shows you the like normie brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? Like any genre, any music, like whatever. That's always good stuff. I love it.
Yeah, Tom Petty's brother stands out in that category. Exactly. He's a really charismatic performer. You can see that comes from the family. There is a sort of I think is it Rob's girlfriend or excuse me, Rob's wife. There's somebody who's like very not supportive at all.
Oh, that's Rob's sister, who is
Rob's sister.
amazingly named
Droid,
Droid.
yeah. The old
I have in my notes Rob's
Yes.
sister Droid question mark, and then they do put that like on
Yeah.
text on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's basically just like, this is pathetic.
Yeah,
How long are they going to do this? Move on. Like, it's not happening. That part was like very for it to cross check another doc from this era. Very
yeah.
King of Kong, where like the people are all like in that movie, the people are all very supportive of Steve Wiebe, and in voicing their support are just absolutely crushing him as a person. Just like, he just loses all the time, and who wants their gravestone to say world's biggest loser on it? I hopefully he could win just once, and it's like, oh, was that supportive? That didn't feel like it.
Yeah, Droid really emerges as a villain once you've met all these other supportive people in the community.
Yeah, sort of the closest thing to an antagonist we have in the world. So so like, I mean, let's just talk about these guys a little bit. Droid. Let's just talk about these guys. I mean, Lips just like he gets frustrated, he gets angry, he gets disappointed, but yet he has this like Charlie Brown gonna kick the football thing where he just keeps coming back. And he, like, every time there's a glimmer of hope, a producer's gonna work with them, he's got a tour book, he's got whatever, he's just you can't tell if he's talking himself up or he's just talking to the camera, or if he sincerely believes that like this is it, this is going to be the break, and like finally he's going to be recognized for the artist he is, and all. Like, it's so endearing, you know what I mean? It's
incredible. And that gets at kind of what made this documentary stick with me, is that like you have to have that fire get extinguished by 50, right? Like if you're Lips, like but it's like him and Rob just like support each other in this way, and they're sort of like vulnerable in this way, where they don't become cynical. Like, they're very I just can't get over seeing, dudes who haven't had success in this long still approaching it with the energy of like, a 15-year-old garage band that's like, this is going to be the one that breaks us, It's incredible.
There's these two bookend quotes before their European tour, and we can get into the details of it, but Lips is at the computer, and it's like a very 2005 era home desktop, and he's talking to the camera, and he says, this fan set up this tour for us. Can you believe it? It's going to be $1,500 a night. And you're just like, oh, dude, I know a very little bit about the music industry, and I know that isn't what's going to happen here.
And so that's a great setup for this first tour, because like, so the sort of first like, act, they go on this tour, which at first I'm like, okay, well, to tour, they have to still have some semblance of popularity, somewhere in Europe. But then, like you say, you meet their tour manager, and immediately just lots of red flags, start going up. And it very quickly becomes apparent that outside of this initial festival in Sweden, this is sort of like, responding to a bot on like Instagram that says like, get your Spotify plays up to 100K or whatever, it's like,
we'd love to partner with you. DM us for more
Fran,
details.
as a working musician, who does tour and does and hangs out with a lot of other artists who do that, like, you must have had like a reaction when you saw how this tour was developing and the woman who got it started, and like, I mean, does any of that ring home? Obviously, you've not gone through this exact experience. I hope not. But
yeah, and believe me, I haven't toured nearly as much as my friends in Anvil, but it's heartbreaking, man. Like, it's incredibly heartbreaking. I had a one of my notes from this scene was who was doing the vetting of these promoters with a bunch of question marks.
Yes.
The Transylvania promoters must have taken a bath.
The Monsters of Transylvania Festival.
Dude,
they had like good sound and lighting. They had like 170 people. It's crazy. Yeah, none of those gigs seem to be. There seems to be no paperwork. other than just emails between them and the tour manager, who's also trying to work this out, communicate across languages. They end up. Was it in the Czechos? Was it in the
Prague? Prague
gig?
Yeah, they can't get to
They
the
can't find
the venue.
It's literally a Spinal Tap scene. Yeah,
Yes.
they can't find the venue. It's incredible. Like, and then this stuff is honestly even if you thought like even if it was like, all right, we're going to try to play some of this up for this document. No, this is nightmare stuff. Like, I mean, I don't know how anybody watches this stuff without getting anxiety.
I was watching it through slits between my fingers. I was just like like an episode of Curb or something, and like, and they start to turn on each other for obvious reasons. How could you not at this point? They like start yelling at the tour manager, who's obviously not a tour manager. She breaks down and cries about how she just did it because she loves them all so much. It's dude, it's brutal. And then Lips' reaction to the whole thing is, this was a disaster. Everything went wrong, but at least there was a tour for everything to go wrong on.
It was
incredible.
So,
that quote, that's one of the quotes that sticks out the whole movie.
What a philosophy of life. Like, gosh, like I would hope that I would deal with adversity that well.
I was like staring at the screen. I think I might have even rewound it because I'm like, is he cracking a smile? Is he like telling a joke? And it seems to be he's earnestly voicing his view that it was better to have to have a disastrous tour than to have no tour.
Yeah, I would have been insufferable giving like feedback on that tour. And also in a great bit of sort of like show don't tell, you get like it emerges that the bassist is it that's dating the manager,
or they fall in love during
they
the
just
tour,
sort of like
it's not really, you're not really sure.
Yeah.
They
like
do make out
from The Office. It's sort of like camera moves over and like they're like laying together, kissing or stuff.
Yeah, there's one part where they're making out in a way that seems like maybe they just started dating.
Yeah,
like not
right.
not necessarily.
And then of course, then shortly thereafter, you get the scene of Anvil playing their wedding. And their wedding, Anvil playing their wedding goes off just about as well as any of their other gigs. Like, it's just a couple people sitting in the back, like, what is happening? Like, what are we doing here? It's wild.
Yeah.
And she's standing by the side of the stage.
So
she's the only person up front, standing by the side of the stage, just beaming, which is very sweet.
And it's wonderful. Like, you're almost like, okay, like, like I'm glad like we got, there's a silver lining to this tour for the guitarist. But it's also like, I mean, you mentioned the quote about at least there's a tour for something to go wrong on, but then it's like they get back and it's immediately like, it's almost even grimmer because like they got this wedding where just nobody's watching them play like,
metal on metal.
I don't know what it is, like the
metal on metal,
666, all their big hits,
and then all the hits. And then I think is it Glenn 5, the drummer, is like homeless at that point, like after that tour. Because they're going through like just sort of like, how hard up they are for money. A lot of folks involved in this project were taking out second mortgages. But it seems pretty dire. And then I think, Andy, I forget if this is part of that same speech, but Lips gives that like really impassioned, like, you got to do it now. Like, you got to do it now, like speech, like, like basically, life is
when
short.
He's yelling at Rob, right?
Yeah. And like, it's another example of him just sort of turning himself around from like, oh man, things are terrible. And then all of a sudden he's preaching to you about how like much possibility there is.
Yeah. So have you guys seen, are you guys Documentary Now viewers?
Love Documentary Now.
Okay.
Adore
David,
Documentary Now.
I was under the impression that you've never watched it,
it's
right?
hard enough for me to watch these actual documentaries and tolerate them, let alone a fake documentary. No, I've never seen it. I'm sure it's great, just never seen it.
Well, so I had seen the Gentle and Slow, the story of the Blue Jeans Committee, 2-part series a number of times. And the last time I watched it, I had not placed that Anvil is one of the documentaries that it is sending up.
Oh God, I don't even think I caught that.
Yeah, so
Just
it's I mean
because
it's
of the way that like he's like working in like the
yes,
Chicago like
Chicago
yeah,
sausage plant.
sausage factory. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so the like the clip of him walking through the Chicago sausage factory and explaining the different types of sausage and all that is like a shot for shot remake of Lips walking through his
The
school lunch
cafeteria
catering
school
cafeteria.
thing. Yeah. Oh my God. Thank
Yeah,
you for pointing that out.
So in
I
this
did
part
not
of
catch
Canada,
that.
the school lunches are all prepared in one central location, and Lips is one of the guys who is a driver who picks up the mashed potato tray, steam tray, and loads it in his truck and drives it to the elementary school, and then drives, that's his job. And yeah, there's a scene earlier when he's talking about like the menus, like, well, and they'll mix it up because
Yeah.
one day it'll be pizza, and the next day it'll be meatloaf, and then the next week, they'll mix it up. Like, well, or Monday it'll be meatloaf, and the next day it'll be pizza. So they change it up. Yeah,
Does he say
a lot of
shepherd's pie
I'm
like
like,
9 times?
I don't think
in
I
that
ever was
sequence?
served a shepherd's pie in my school. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a very
Oh, that is
cold
that
weather
is
Canadian menu. It didn't seem like they were appealing to the
Yeah.
organic vegan. We're out here in Southern California. We got, what I mean? It didn't seem like it was appealing to that kind of mom and
Yeah.
dad. But
Well, so
That and I was gonna say that and Lips when he names all of their discography were like
Oh, dude.
very like Portlandia moments,
Yes.
like very Fred Armisen, like I was
Yes.
just like cracking up during
Yeah.
those sequences.
Yes, absolutely. He also, I read some like interviews from the last 10 or 15 years since the movie came out, and there's another very Portlandia bit that he has, or Spinal Tap on, honestly, where he's every album cycle that as far as I can tell, he makes a point to go out and says like, we have never sounded this good. The production we like finally got a good producer. This is the one. If you've been waiting for like the Anvil album, this is it.
Yeah, he's a born salesman.
It's like Spinal Tap going through the. Yeah, it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
Spinal Tap going through their drummers.
Yeah, he's a
Excellent
born
drummer,
salesman.
excellent drummer.
And all this stuff is endearing. Like, meaning like these guys are proud of the movie now,
Yes.
like all these years later, and because they don't come off, the movie is not mocking them. Like, it's not that kind of thing. It's not like American
No,
movie
it's
where
not.
you're supposed to kind of
No.
laugh at these guys, and that's affectionate in a way, but it's not mean spirited at all. It is totally loving, and just these guys. I mean, we talked a lot about Lips, but not so much about Rob, and the reveal of like the layers of Rob is another kind of rewarding aspect of the movie. Like you find out that he's a painter, and he's kind of quiet, like he's this big hulking guy, and he plays the heck out of the drums. And you can never really get a read on him. Like Lips is out there spinning, and Rob's just kind of sitting in the back, and like you just never quite know. Like Rob almost seems like he could be a member of Steely Dan. Like he's just sitting back, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like he's
That's
not
true.
giving it to you the same
Well,
way.
Lips is such a big personality that he's kind of on the verge a couple times of making you think he might be a big dumb
Right.
idiot.
Yeah.
And then like each time you're like, oh no, okay, no, he's just like a very earnest guy, and he's not. But Rob, like, you can tell he's the thinking man of the operation.
Yes, he's very much like the spiritual advisor of Anvil. And yeah, the sort of character study of Rob is where I think there's just this another layer of depth, like to the film, where you're like, all right, wow, because it's fascinating listening to him talk about his painting. He's the son of Holocaust survivors, and he discusses that impact on him, and you just sort of like, I think it's sort of nice the way they reveal more to you about Rob as the sort of film is building, towards, okay, now we're going to watch our heroes try to collaborate on the big record.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. All right, let's get to that. So
I guess we should.
So what happens is
Yeah.
they get introduced to this, I guess, well-regarded record producer, mostly goes by the name CT in England. They fly themselves over to England. They meet with him, and the guy basically is like, "Well, it's going to be $12,000. I'd love to do this. I'm exciting." And then they come
Yeah.
back, and their Lips is excited about it, but they don't have like that kind of money to scrape together. So they're trying to figure out where the money's going to come from. And then you get this scene. Fran, just walk us through this scene with with Cut Loose, who's this guy's been a fan This guy's been a fan of Anvil since the early days, and now he gets to repay that love by giving Lips the opportunity of a lifetime.
So Lips, Lips needs to start drumming up some hard cash if CT, the big English producer, who is the producer who they feel they sounded their best with in like the early 80s.
I think it was Metal
this is
on
a guy
Metal.
who worked with Metal on Metal, and I think he worked with Black Sabbath. And so that's sort of the new reason why things have gone wrong. Well, we just didn't have CT. If we had CT make the record, that'd be that's what's gonna make it happen. And so yes, they need to come up with $12K, and Cut Loose offers Lips an opportunity to make some easy money at his telemarketing firm, which is just insane. It's like this like boiler room scene, but for like just the oddest guys in their community. And I think the quote that I wrote down is, Cut Loose tells Lips that if a monkey could read, he'd make $600 a week. And needless to say, Lips is not successful because he's an endearing, earnest guy, and he can't scream at people that, like, I think he's trying to tell them that, like, there's sunglasses they should buy. Like, that.
Dude, I love the telemarketer behind him decides he's gonna like jump in and save the day, and he's like, "Say this, I'll tell you what, I'm selling a half of a box to a golfer. I'll give you the other half."
These are the same sunglasses that Keanu Reeves wears in The Matrix. Almost exactly the same.
In The Matrix. Yeah, which
basically
Lips even like it seems like Lips maybe hasn't seen The Matrix. He's like the film, the Hollywood film, The Matrix.
Yeah, it's really like, and also like, if you make $600 a week, it's going to take you a long time to make 12 grand. I don't know, like it's like they're like, you can make so much money from this. You can make $600 a week. Now, I'm not spitting on that. I'm just saying. It's not, this is not rock star fortunes being made here. Like, it's, the
economics aren't there.
It just doesn't add up.
It totally doesn't fit his character, and you got to almost admire him for how quickly he quits this, because he doesn't make it, like, I don't even know, like a half day. But seeing Cut Loose as this like vice president of this telemarketing firm,
it's like The Office.
It's just like The Office, and it's bizarre to see this scene that reminded me of Boiler Room when like Vin Diesel is feeding lines, like Andy's saying, this guy behind him, but it's just like the stakes are so much lower, and
Cut Loose is just strutting around there.
How come I never get these calls? No one's ever been like, just some freak shows like, dude, do you need some sunglasses? You need like a box of sunglasses? It's unbelievable.
It's great. But Lips, again, the endearing quality of Lips is that
he's got a smile on his face throughout that entire thing.
He quit. He's like, I did this for like, a total of 8 hours and I didn't make $1. And he's like, I've been raised my whole life to be polite. And this job is about not being polite and interrupting people and being rude. He's like, I just can't do that. And it's like, he's very self-aware. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, he knows who he is and what his values are. And even though he's trying to chase his dream, it's like, this isn't like, Jay-Z selling drugs to be able to record an album. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to compromise in that way. He's not even going to compromise in trying to sell somebody some questionable quality sunglasses. You know what I mean? He just can't do it.
It's
beautiful. It's really kind of beautiful. Now, you never hear what happens with you never get a follow-up with what's his name? Cut Loose. You never see what happened. Cut Loose is never seen again, unfortunately. I would love to hear Cut Loose's take on Lips' skill as a salesman, what he did right, what he did wrong. Is he disappointed that it didn't work out? You can imagine, but unfortunately, you get just enough of Cut Loose, though.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Yeah. And it pays. And then this sort of sets up Lips for another one of his like inspiring sort of speeches and moments when him and Rob, because this movie is really sort of documentary is therapy for them. They're sort of reflecting on this jam they're in, and Lips has a number of great lines. One of which is "Nobody's getting paid, everybody believes in Lips." Which is one of the better third person ones he does. And then the very beautiful exchange with him and Rob, where Lips says something to the effect of like he would jump off a cliff, and Rob says, "You won't jump off the cliff because I'll stop you." And they have this very very heartfelt moment, and then like Lips like pushing I think through tears says, "We're going to be rock stars. It's a dream. I'm going to make it come true." Which again, just I can't even imagine coming out of that telemarketing experience and like arriving at that statement that soon after.
Right. And so then they get the money from Lips's sister. Basically, she just gives him a loan.
That's honestly to me the most powerful moment, because it's sort of like Debbie, a dream weaver. Going back to David was talking about how great his family is, and they truly do believe in him, and like think he's a great artist, and they just want him to be happy, and they know that what will make him happy is sharing his art. And this is no small amount. I mean, so Debbie just gives him, his sister gives him $13,000. Again, too, there's no business plan. There's no like, hey, like we're gonna get X done and then try to recoup this money, this way.
It doesn't even seem like they think, it's a gift. It's a gift. She doesn't think.
Yeah.
Like, oh, like the record industry is clearly crazy, but I am putting my faith in him that he's going to record this, sell it, and I'm going to make money. I'm going to make interest.
They're not signed to a label.
She's just giving him the money.
This is a completely on spec kind of situation.
No.
So then.
No, yeah, and literally nobody's going, hey, what if you didn't record with a CT?
Right, like,
can we do this for $5,000?
Computers have been invented at this point. People are recording, on a laptop, and there's way less expensive, ways to do it. But okay, so and I was like, $12,000. That seems pretty steep. But then they do go over to England. They do record with CT, and you see it's like week 5. And I'm like, wow, this CT guy is really not charging that much if you're staying at his house in Dover, England for like a month and a half, or like, it seems like he's actually maybe giving him a little bit of a deal, because like, I don't know.
I had the exact same reaction. I was like, wow, this guy probably sees an easy mark. I'll bag $13,000. And then the minute they show you that they're 5 weeks at this place, and of course, being erratic, it's like, wow, it starts to get to the point where it's an act of charity, because and also
it's not really explained what, like, this is not some kind of monster, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially like the biggest complaint they have is like Rob gets mad at him that Lips is accepting of like not great takes.
Yeah, vocal takes are struggling, I think.
Vocal takes are struggling, and Lips is like, that's fine. And Rob's like, no, like, do it again.
Which is again weird, because you have to sort of like, like figure out that this is why they're arguing, okay, and it's the vocal takes. But it's another example of them just like almost purposefully refusing to get into the music with you.
Yes.
There's no discussion of like, oh, well, I thought the drummer was off time in this take, and what that song, maybe we should cut the fat. Like, is there too much? It's none of that.
None of that.
No lyric writing. None of this. Like,
we have no idea of like, are they of the opinion that this is some of the best material that they've put together in the last 15 years? There's no.
We just know
discussion.
It's the 13th album.
The 13th album, and
that
13. And that they've settled on the production's been the problem.
That's it. CT, everything's gangbusters after that.
Amazing. All right, exactly. They come back to oh, go ahead.
Oh, we should. I did just want to add, Lips jumping over the railing to go touch a rock that is not actually one of the Stonehenge rocks. It's just another big rock in the vicinity. He
Also, how
breaks them.
perfect is this film that like nobody can watch and say like they don't see the Spinal Tap elements?
They're in
There's just
Stonehenge,
like
yeah.
there's this like giant cathartic
Right.
moment at Stonehenge where they like they even frame Rob and Lips like between the stones or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
way to not
And
miss
it's
that
not like
opportunity.
Rockstar is getting a private tour. They're on the like I was at Stonehenge last year. They're on the regular tour where you hold up the little thing to your ear and you know and you hear about the druids and the whatever. You know, it's there. You know, it's really yeah. It's it's a great experience.
That's got to be the director. That's got to be the director being like, guys, let's go to Stonehenge.
It could be.
This will be a good.
It could be, but it could be, but also like
100%.
I mean, I went to Stonehenge. It was great, but like you got to figure metal. It's not.
Do you know how
super
close
I don't
Dover
think.
is?
From what I wouldn't go. I didn't go to Dover, but I don't think it's super close because Stonehenge isn't by the sea. But you got to figure metal guys are like, we're in England, we got to go to Stonehenge. So you know, it's not. I don't think if it was a setup by the director, it probably was not a hard sell. You know what I mean? Come on, what's more metal than Stonehenge?
Yeah,
Nothing.
sure. Yeah.
So respect that.
Totally, yeah.
All right, so they go back to the Canada, and then you see them on an LA radio show, being interviewed and talking about how you know they're looking for a manager, they're looking for a label, they're trying to distribute this thing, whatever. And you know I mean I guess the you know the radio guy is kind of pumping them up a little bit, but it does seem like the radio guy is looking at them like they are kind of legendary in their world. You know what I mean? He's wearing an Anvil shirt. Now maybe they just handed it to him and he put it on for the you know, I don't know. But you did get the sense that these are not like nobodies. You know what I mean? Because up to this point, you don't really see them having much of a connection. But
I was sort of back and forth between what's going on in that scene. Whether is it
totally.
Yeah,
mine was like, why is this sequence in the film, sort of thing. Like, I get that maybe you want to play up. We're gonna go to LA and try to sell the big record, but it just seemed like, why are they out there, kind of thing, and that it was, you know, I guess maybe it was to sort of show that, you know, look at how the world has passed these guys by, you know, because they're you know stopping by the label like they're Brendan Fraser and Airheads, like, you know, trying to like, you know, give the tape to the receptionist kind of thing, you know.
When she looks at him and she's like, I'll make sure he gets it.
Yeah,
and
they seem to spend a few weeks. They seem to spend.
Have we debased these men enough?
They seem to spend a few weeks in LA, and all that they do that you can see is like walk into the front office of a record label, hand them a CD, and then walk out. Like, it's not really clear that there's a lot more going on.
Which is the opposite of what the depiction is in every 70s era film, where like it's impossible not to get a record contract the moment you touch down in LA.
You just fall into a pool of cocaine.
Yeah, and I don't know. And honestly, maybe that's, you know, what Lips was operating under, you know, that this was.
Then they try to sell it to the guy, the label guy, the A&R guy in Canada. So like EMI Canada, one of the record label in Canada. They actually get a meeting with a guy.
Yeah, EMI Canada.
And you know, they have a meeting with him where he seems very like, I'm doing you a solid, I'm giving you 15, and that's what you're gonna get. And Lips still is talking to himself into thinking that it might be more than that.
It's funny.
I mean, after a clear, like, yeah, this is a no for us. Like Rob, like, I think in the parking lot is like telling him why, like, actually it was pretty good, like this meeting.
Yeah, well, because dude, that's when the power of their, I don't want to say delusion, but their like self-persuasion is when Rob, because what he says is, look, I'll be clear, like there is some value in your history, and you're doing it like that is a marketable commodity. And like Rob hears that and he's like, did you hear what he said? He said our history. Talk about
keying in on the positive, man. Yeah.
And so then like a minute later, it, you know, cut to, it's clear that no one signed them. And they've decided to.
So wait, I want to say one more.
Themselves.
I want to say one more thing about the
And they're
Canadian
like
record label
they're
thing, and in general,
okay.
is like a little bit of I was wondering is okay. Sacha Gervasi is directing this movie. Now the thing he had done previous to this is he had just written the script for that Steven Spielberg movie, The Terminal, with Tom Hanks, right? So like at the time, this guy is a hot young screenwriter who just written a Steven Spielberg movie. Now he like didn't go on to be like that, whatever, successful as a screenwriter. Like he's had a few things here and there. No knock on him. I'm just saying, like, but at the time, you just wrote your first thing out of the box, a Steven Spielberg movie. Like you're a hot commodity. And he's in there filming this meeting and so I don't know if they only got this meeting because they had this guy with them or they're filming the documentary. And there's no conversation with any of these label people about the fact that like, well, you have this history. You're having this documentary filmed about you by a guy who has some heat on him. So maybe we should partner with you on that level. Like, can we release this along with the documentary and partner with the film studio or something like that? Like that must have happened, but it's not addressed at all. So I'm a little, I don't know.
He's also at that point, the director at that point, I also believe, is dating or married to
really?
Jerry Hall.
Okay, so even more so.
Ginger Spice, which I imagine would get you some record label contacts.
Yeah, so again, it's a little bit of the like, what's really going on behind the scenes? Like, how much of the reality are we being shown versus, it's certainly effective in the movie, but it does make me wonder, like, given the context, like, was there more going on?
And that also made me wonder about the talking heads too. Is that how they angled for Lars and Scotty and these folks?
All right. So then they go into the self-releasing mode.
But
which right away they're like completely self-assured that this is like once we decided it was obvious, like we should put it out ourselves. Well, what are we going to pay some middleman to sell it? Like the way to do this is out of the trunk of our cars. It's just like dude,
we also get another one of my favorite Lips quotes, which is the music forever, maybe so that does too, as they're just making they're just making just repeatedly incredibly bad money decisions, from however much it costs to spend that much time.
But the idea of self-distributing in 2005, like it does have like a little bit of a John Cusack and say anything like it's kickboxing, the sport of the future kind of, energy to it. Like really trying to sell it. But yeah, I mean, and they're right that is where music distribution would go. And if you were early on that and you caught a wave, but they were not Radiohead. They weren't, you know what I mean? Like they didn't have they clearly were not the like web savvy young, you know what I mean, hipsters who were going to catch on to that. But, so, then we're kind of rounding it off here. But there is kind of the final moment of a little bit of redemption or triumph the movie gives you, which is this Tokyo show. And again, it's all kind of a little abrupt.
Yes.
They don't really tell you what happens with the album. It's not, you know what I mean? They're just like, you're just kind of hanging with these guys.
They sort of leave out the details, but they basically say, well, we send out this record all over the place. Like, and I'm literally at this point, like, I'm like, all right, $10 a pop. Right. How much money can they get back for this inventory they have? Right. Like, stop sending these away on spec. You guys need to make $10 a pop on these.
Yeah.
But they say they send them all over the place, and like, lo and behold, one of them makes their way to like a metal fan in Japan who books them for this festival. So like next thing you know, we're going to Tokyo. We're on our way. Like, which maybe this is a part of sort of setting up like a payoff, but they're very nervous. The sort of the hope isn't there because when they arrive in Tokyo, they learn that they're at 11:30 a.m. On a festival bill, so they're opening up the day of like a day-long metal festival, and they become very concerned that there will be no crowd. But now I will say that this was not.
They show up, man. I mean, 11:30 a.m. to open a festival.
I will say the little playing possum here that the movie does about whether people are going to show up, that did not get me because I went to Japan this year, and so I knew without any question that place was going to be full.
Okay.
Because that is a timely nation.
Okay. Yeah. See, it got me. I was like, oh man, 11:30, another dud for them. But they were excited. And then, you get this sort of, one of the really weird choices was you get this sort of text on screen epilogue stuff, but it's placed within the end credits. And maybe that's just to make folks stick around for the credits, but it just makes it a little, I don't know, awkward because you want to find out where are they now, what did it do, and of course at the time they're creating that epilogue, they don't necessarily know like what comes next, which I think is also what makes this such a noteworthy film, is that it leads to a resurgence in Anvil's popularity. The movie is wildly well reviewed. I'm not sure if like the money return, but I know that they I remember that year that it won an Independent Spirit Award. I'm pretty sure Anvil played at the Independent Spirit Awards that year, and then they toured with AC/DC. But basically, in the at least a few years after the film, they got that sort of recognition. I think.
Yeah, we could talk because I did some research about that and saw some follow-up stuff, but I do want to kind of highlight before the end of that, because I do want to say they played the show in Tokyo.
Okay.
The festival seems to go really well for them, and then you see them walking around Tokyo, and you get the final speech from Lips, which is he just says like a quote is, "The most valuable things in life are the people that you know, the places you've been, and the experiences you've had." Like he's just really savoring it, and he's again, it's like I want like a quote of Lips a day calendar or something, because it's just it's really beautiful and sweet. Dude. But yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's like the end of the movie. It's like there's the end of the movie, and then there's this end of the movie that isn't in the movie, but happens if you're watching it now, right? Where it's like, have you ever seen a band called Death, Fran?
Of course, I love that flick.
So it's like the last 25 minutes of that movie, is basically what happens to Anvil.
Yeah.
Right.
But for Anvil, it just all happens after the movie comes out. Whereas like Death, it was able to be, like the whole rediscovery period just happens off screen. And it's like, now I suppose in 2006, when you were watching this, you wouldn't have necessarily known that. And so there would be a certain resonance to it. But
no,
even
so I was just saying, going back to like, just like seeing a trailer and being a sucker for the reviews and being like, all right, this is a music doc. I think it was the first time I would have seen them perform would have been at those IFC awards, because I would have tuned into that and then been like, oh, killer, they're on IFC. But even outside, other than that, that would have been my knowledge of what happened next. I didn't really follow up on, in preparing for this podcast, I was like, oh, cool. Check that Wikipedia. They toured with AC/DC. I figured they toured. I didn't know how big it got. Yeah.
Because I remember this running on the IFC channel quite a bit. I remember it used to be on the like both IFC and like Indieplex or whatever those digital cable channels were. So it had its run, and so then they basically get what they want out of it.
Yeah.
But the movie ends with it being presumably Lips content, even if it doesn't happen. That the journey is the thing. And it's sort of bittersweet, because at least for me, I'm like, it's wistful to think that is the way that he would feel. But I don't know that I thought that was actually how he felt. Like it was sort of sad. It was sort of
sad.
Do
you think?
Like,
for
they're
sure.
Still just slaving away at it,
And there's this other sort of, so I was just going to say, there's this other sort of element that's sort of touched on, but they never really dig into, which is these guys have kids, that they're just disappearing from for, 5-6 weeks on end. They don't really seem to be thinking much about them, and then they're just sort of like this. I don't know. They seem to stay away from their sort of like nuclear family life. Which you then wonder, what does that look like? Just besides the failure to have this record be.
You do get the scene of Lips playing badminton with his son, also, and like you do get the sense of both of them. I mean, they're they live with the mothers of their kids, and they seem to like both. The brief scenes you get with the kids seem to be warm and affectionate, and so I don't think that
Lips's wife says That like
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
he's not.
And
as
she's
engaged
busted
with
her
the
ass.
kids as
She's
she'd like.
waitressing, and you know,
Yeah.
you see her working hard too.
Yeah.
And to support his dream, basically, you know, like she talks about, you get a little bit of clips of the, you know,
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in these. There's a lot going on in
right.
these
And
families.
she's like,
to
I
make
kind of
this-
fell in love
to
with the
make
rock
this
star in the
slog
dream as well, and
possible.
the music and the looks and the whole
Yes.
thing, and like, you know, I wonder, you know, like, is that, you know, like, there's a little bit of like middle-aged regret about, you know, but on the other hand, like, they still kind of love it, and you know what I mean? Like, it's, you know, it's yeah.
Yeah, other than Droid, everyone seems to have made their peace with this life.
I
which is
just
pretty
found in my
cool.
notes her. I just found her in my notes her quote. It's over. It's been over
It's
for a long
over.
time. It's a shame. It's a shame no one's
And yet
living
she
in
was
the
wrong.
real world. I'm the only one trying to. I described that as Rob's
Yeah.
sister. Not
and yet she
being
was wrong
very
because,
nice.
like, I watched the video
have little
of
faith,
Robin
Droid.
Lips from last year, 2022, and like, they seem to have achieved a fair level of success, and you know, like, compared to where they are in the movie, you know, they're playing to 1,000 people on, or you know, a night, or you know, in that range, which is a lot, and yeah, they're not
Hell yeah.
Metallica, they were never, like, even in the context of this movie, his biggest dreams are not becoming Metallica. You know what I mean? Like, you get the sense that, like, he wants to have, you know, play to a,
Yeah.
you know, a full
Yeah.
club every night and get to make his living as a musician and get some respect and recognition, and that's probably good enough.
That clip you mentioned from a year ago is great. One, because Lips is very
Yeah.
casually just rolling a joint throughout the entire interview, completely completely unconcerned, like fully on camera. The other, and it's like they still have the same mentality that they had in the movie. Rob, the interviewer asks him, like, what's the best thing that you guys had? Was it touring with AC/DC? And Rob's like, well, you know, like, that was awesome, but it's kind of just the whole thing, man. It's like the whole path is the best part. Just
Yeah.
getting to do this still is the best part.
I mean, they're for goofy dudes, they're wise dudes.
They are. Yes, there's some real wisdom in there. I mean, first of all, like,
Right.
the music will live forever, and maybe the debt will too.
I mean, if these guys are not in debt and they're able to play,
So
you know,
awesome.
at a level where they don't have to, you know, work construction, you know, gigs and stuff they were doing, and you know, they get to sometimes play with their heroes and stuff. Because I mean, one thing we didn't talk about is, like, in the beginning of the European tour, when they played that Swedish rock festival, the first thing, like, you see Lips running around chasing his heroes. Like, he sees Michael Schenker from UFO. He sees Carmine Appice, who played with Jeff Beck and all those other people. He sees Rock Docs legend JJ French of Twisted Sister, who's just the freaking greatest. I mean, love JJ
French, man, unbelievable. And
yeah,
and comes off as lovely here as he did
Just
in the
total
Twisted Sister doc.
childlike wonder.
So they're fans
just-
too. You know, that's the other thing, is, like, these guys
it's
are fans
incredible.
of metal and they really live it and love it. So yeah, so if
Yeah.
if they've achieved that level of success thanks to the movie, but also thanks to people then coming to appreciate the music, like, it's been 15 years or whatever, like, people aren't going to keep coming back just because of the movie. You know what I mean? Like, clearly they got that bump and were able to make enough of it to make something of a career. I mean, I read in an interview recently where Lips is talking about, like, yeah, like, you know, being on tour means, like, you're sitting in a van driving for 18 hours and then you get out and you sleep a couple hours and you get back and you play a show and you get back in the van. Like, and he's 60 now or whatever, you know, and he's like, it's not for everybody. Like, you know, I'm built for it. I can take it. And, you know, so it's not like they're, you know, globetrotting superstars, but, you know, they achieved the dream in a way, you know, and I kind of compare it a little bit in a weird way to, you know, this is going to be take a drink, Rock Dogs fans, but I compared it a little bit to Guided by Voices, where, you know, like, they were toiling in obscurity. Nobody could, like, they could not even get a gig with, like, one person to show up for years and years and years in Ohio. And then, you know, they, like, so when they finally made it, it was, like, kind of rewarding. And then they wanted to make, you know, they wanted it to be a bigger success, but, you know, that is kind of a story that you get sometimes where the person that was just grinding for years and years and years, like Death, like, you know, like Sixto, the late great Sixto from Search for Sugar Man, you know, that story is always endearing when you get the person that grinds and grinds and grinds and finally has some level of recognition and success, rather than the
Yeah.
overnight, success stories that we always, see in the big splashy rock docs.
We love an underdog.
Yeah. Well, Fran, let's talk about your new record.
Oh, yeah, man.
As we sit here on a Monday evening, it was officially released to all streaming services on Saturday. Is that right?
Yes,
Just
sir.
a couple days ago. Yeah. The Dogs Race to the Door.
First question: is this the best album you've ever made?
What do
you finally found the producer you wanted.
So,
right.
Oh, you
finally got the
it.
production. Finally got the production.
We just had a like preview that it was clearly written. Like you send it out to a few people, but some of them are just gonna print the press release. Or in this case, it seemed like it was like Chat GPT because it added like the before left-hand second baseman, like when people say the fish. Yeah. And like there was these other like sort of odd like tweaks to just like the press release. But yeah, best thing we ever done, no doubt about it. But it really is. We this is like one of the ways someone described it locally was meta modern heartland rock, and I actually think that kind of is a good synopsis. I'm wearing a lot of the sort of Springsteen Seeger influence on my sleeve. Certainly in tracks like I-90 and On My Way, which Andy mentioned earlier, but then also mixing in some other elements like synths and sort of like hip hop drum loops and samples that I like to sort of blend to sort of make our sound unique. And, just really fortunate to be, amongst a great band. All the guys put in incredible performances. And then Brendan Sims, my co-producer and co-engineer, he's just, he was, a real big reason this one got done and really helped bring out, a lot of the sonic quality on the record. And we're excited about it. And you can get it at
Sam Goody,
Spotify,
Tower Records.
Wherever you
were going to say Sam Goody.
Yeah, Sam Goody.
Suddenly something clicked in my head that you're going to be like, wherever great records
the back
are
of Lips trunk.
yeah.
It's it's everywhere you look. And we're at LH2B Music on Spotify. LH2B is our Bandcamp. And
you doing touring around this one?
Yeah, I hope you listen and share if you like it. No, we're so unlike Lips and Rob. As I approach 40, I just enjoy not trying to travel distances. I'll put it this way, getting back to their initial European tour, I'm happy to travel if we can confirm the money and the hotels and everything's like, that and that way I can get the band to travel too. Otherwise, folks are gonna be like, no, I've got children and a life and I have no illusions of Canada.
Okay, so as I have to ask, as we're all baseball fans, so like what percentage of people get the irony of the name or the kind of joke? Okay.
Surprisingly, a lot. Like a lot of times when I'm obviously asked about it a lot, but I've been sort of delighted to see how many people just key in on it as like an oddity. And I know one of our local NPR station, which I've been on to perform, plug records, the host, he loves it. And he actually, when right when he got me on air one time, he's like, "Do you know the last person to play second base left-handed in a major league game?" And I was ready for this one. So it's I did my homework because it's my favorite baseball player too. Is Don Mattingly. It was like during the I think it's during the Pine Tar game. The fight led to so many ejections that he had to shift over. So, but yeah, it's just sort of something where when I was, you come up all playing the same position, and I was second base because my grandpa was, and then I get to high school, and they're like, "Yeah, that ain't happening." And shortly thereafter, I ended up picking up a guitar and writing songs. So, people would say, "Oh, it's left hand second base," and I was like, "That's gonna make a good band name someday."
Yeah, I remember you telling me that you when you were first escorted off of second base, you knew even then. You were like, that's the band name.
Oh yeah. I was like, I'm holding on to that one. And it's funny too. Is like, when I first started putting out stuff like that, there were even people from like high school baseball were like,
I like it.
Dude,
I like it. Well, maybe you'll get a gig with the
that,
baseball project. We'll hit up our friends Peter Buck and Mike Mills and see if they're looking for a baseball themed night up there in Rochester.
Yeah, man.
Maybe play Cooperstown. Can't be that far, right? Just do it. It's all marketing.
Work those angles, man. Yeah, I'll come down to Cooperstown. That's right, man.
The Orioles' former AAA affiliate's a Rochester outfit.
That's right. I'm a big
Nighthawks.
fan of the Rochester Red Wings. Big fan of minor league baseball in Rochester. We got a great stadium and a great team.
Word. Well, check out the new record.
Red
I've
Wings.
listened to it quite a lot since it came out. It is fantastic. But
Good stuff.
a little
Good
shout out
stuff.
to the old one. Go Run and Tell Your Masters. Still hits pretty hard too. I don't know. So.
Well, that's on this one. It was
Oh,
it
really?
Was just so it was the first. You must have been listening to it pretty hard. Huh?
Well,
I'm
the
just kidding.
name of that 2021.
Yeah, so that was because that had just been released in
Got
the
it.
ether of COVID.
It's called a
This is
single.
the first
Andy.
album.
It's how they promote records.
I see.
I'm just
Okay.
busting you up, Andy.
Yeah. Well, I love that song.
Go on and tell your
great.
masters. We're big fans of it. And shout out to Danny Sheehan.
I was gonna say Sheehan's on it.
Danny
Taconic.
Sheehan.
Well, what do you like?
Taconic
Anybody knows
Music.
him as,
Check out
as-
Taconic Music.
Yeah.
Danny Sheehan, awesome player, Brooklyn-based, great musician and friend of Andy and ours, and he appears on Go Run and Tell Your Masters.
Love
and
it. Okay.
Over and over again, ripping some
Before you
lead
guys start
guitars.
talking about fish, let's wrap it up. It's been great seeing you, Fran. Thanks so much for doing this. Shout out to Anvil, Lips and Rob. They're on the road somewhere.
Thank y'all
If you
so much
guys,
for having
Lips and
me.
Rob, come on, Rock Docs.
Yeah, shout out to
we'd love to
Anvil.
follow up on this great talk. But yeah. I don't think we have to. We all recommend this.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah,
There's no
Lips
ifs,
and Rob,
ands, or
we
buts
love
about it.
y'all.
It's great. It's classic for a reason. It can be a little bit of a downer at times because it's not like one triumph after the other, but it is
Run, don't
delightful and
walk.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I will just say before we sign off, this might have the least music out of any movie we've ever done. There's like not much music in this movie.
I can't even. I mean, think about how we just had this whole discussion, and we're not like, oh yeah, that one song is really good. Like, there's no like, like I dig this tune or that tune.
They talk about Metal on Metal and 666 like, I don't know, 10 or 15 times. I couldn't like hum a bar.
Well, go check it out. From
you know,
three
like,
huge
I have no
fans
idea
of
what
Anvil.
those songs are like.
No, but we're fans of the guys. We're fans of the doc. And man, Fran, thanks for doing it. And everybody, thanks for listening. Yeah, thanks for listening to Rock Talks, everybody. We're brought to you by Treble Media. Support
Appreciate you,
those folks
fellas.
over at patreon.com/Treble Media and patreon.com/Treble, treblezine.com, etc. They're awesome. And thanks for listening.
My name is Tiziana Rigoni, manager at Anvil.
It looks like she's booked us a tour. England, Belgium, Germany. This is going to be the biggest tour I've done in 20 years. When I work at Choice Children's Catering, they don't know that my band even exists.
Welcome to Romania.
The place is jam-packed.
Given your reputation, you should be playing in front of 1,000 people every night, and you are not.
We missed our train. Hi. It's so unprofessional what we are going through. Who's the guy that's supposed to pay me? It's been nothing but a nightmare.
It's over. It's been over for a long time.
It's so unfair to Anvil. It's so unfair to Anvil.
I stayed dedicated to what?
Rob, I don't want to fight with you. Who's the closest person I got in the world? I started out with Rob when I was 14 years old, and we said, we're going to do it till we're old men. We really meant that.
They should have made it a lot bigger.
I think even he knows at the end of the day, the family is what's important.
I always believe that no matter how hard it gets, there's always a way.
Let's show the world that they're wrong.
We're gonna do it together. We're gonna get there. We're gonna be rock stars. It's a dream, but I'm gonna make it come true. So there's cliffs I can go jump off. That's the easy way.
Well, no, you won't jump off the cliff because I'll stop you.
That's dedication, pal.